Oh, hi. Yes, there's something squirming around in here in case you were like, what the fuck is in that sweater? So, Secondhand September. Let's talk about it. This video is going to come to you in 4, possibly 5 parts because I feel like I'm forgetting something. Your first question may be, the fuck is Secondhand September? So, there's this charity organization in England called Oxfam, and they have thrift stores where you can buy secondhand things that are donated, and that raises money for all of the other good efforts that they put in, kind of like the Goodwill here in the States. Now, their message with Secondhand September was to encourage people to not buy new clothing items, specifically I think with the intention to keep people away from fast fashion purchases, but generally just if you're going to buy clothing that is new to you, go for a secondhand store, thrift shop, op shop, whatever you want to call it, charity shop, do a clothing swap with someone. Just don't buy more disposable clothing, which I honestly didn't even realize was a thing, which is very naive of me until this past year, really, just the concept of disposable fashion. And I'm sure I've bought into it to some degree. We'll get into that a little later, but it is just at a terrifying level in the world how much people throw away. I will link to their little trailer video for the Secondhand September initiative. Make it sound so fancy. There's like a minute-long video that kind of gives an overview of the intention of it. I will link in the description. This super isn't sponsored. I just very much support the movement. This fucking neighbor. I guess I'm just gonna sit here and drink with a sleeping ferret on my lap until that noise stops, and then we'll regroup. Hold, please. All right, we're gonna resituate you. The noise has stopped. We're at a weird angle because you're propped up on a pillow. Let's go over what my personal Secondhand September challenge was, because I don't go shopping very often. Cheap prick extraordinaire. I wanted to actually make it something I had to work at every day, which was put a thrifted outfit together and make a daily post on Instagram every single day of this month. For those of you keeping track at home, yes, I am wearing day 29 outfit. I have not posted day 30 yet because it is currently September 29th. It's Sunday. I have more time today, so I'm filming now instead of actually tomorrow. But I already know what I'm going to wear tomorrow and a general write-up that I'm going to do for my Instagram caption. I think I've gleaned all the life lessons I'm going to get out of this project by this point in the process, and another night into morning probably isn't going to change much about how I'm thinking. But anyway, I managed to not even have to make anything new out of thrifted material, which I was expecting because I didn't think I had that many thrifted garments, but I have a lot of clothes. I have way more clothes than I thought. And I still had probably another week's worth of outfits. But that was the challenge for me, was wearing a different thrifted outfit every day, and something I would actually wear. And if I was short on things, I was going to, as I mentioned, make whatever bit was missing from thrifted material in my sewing room. So I didn't really have time to do that, so I'm really glad I had enough things to go through. Now let's jump to part 2. My relationship with thrifting. When I'm out in the world and wearing a dress I really like, or just whatever my outfit is, if someone compliments it and it's thrifted, the first thing I say is that it's thrifted. Thankfully, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes people respond with, "That's fucking gross." Maybe they phrase it a little less harshly, but they're genuinely skeeved out by the idea of wearing clothes someone else has worn. And yes, to be fair, I have found things at the thrift store that still have the tags on it, so that's not always true. But from my point of view, that's a very privileged perception to have, because that means you have money to buy new clothes at all times, and it was never out of necessity that you bought thrifted clothes. Thankfully, it's become like a trendy thing to buy secondhand clothes in recent years. I'm so pumped. Give Macklemore his credit. I know people did genuinely start going to thrift stores a little more around the time the Thrift Shop song came on. All about it. More people going to Goodwill. I think that's for the best. I'm sure they're not a perfect company. I am not a perfect consumer in this capacity. I'm not saying anyone has to be perfect and be 100% all the time. Out of necessity, when I was a child, we didn't have much financially speaking, and we had to have things secondhand. I wore a ton of hand-me-downs for my brother. This is part of why I was such a tomboy growing up. I'm glad I grew up the way I did, because it gave me such a deep appreciation for anything we bought, especially not having a fascination with name brands. Like, I don't give a shit. about what clothing company made the thing. Although I do want to, going forward, look into specifically sustainable companies. I know that that's more expensive. Something we'll talk about in my what the fuck am I gonna do from here thing at the end of the video. Anyway, it just wasn't something I thought about. No items of clothing were on a pedestal. It was just, do I like how it looks? Cool. There were other children I went to public school with that genuinely stressed out about that stuff and would get made fun of. Granted, I got made fun of every day for a lot of the clothes I had and got called poor. And I was just a generally weird kid, so I was gonna get made fun of for something. So the fact that it was focused on my clothes and not me as a person probably made that a little easier to swallow. So yeah, going to thrift stores, owning things that had been previously worn and repairing them. If something had happened to it, if it was something we had that fit and got worn out, it was just part of life growing up. So it didn't seem wild and crazy. When I started sewing, when I was finishing up high school, getting close to graduating, I was getting very, very tired of wearing my brother's hand-me-downs and starting to be more comfortable with my body as a growing woman, and I didn't want to be drowning in clothes that didn't fit, but I knew going to buy new clothes that fit was an impossible task and also not something I had money for, because going to buy commercially made clothing, for the most part, I don't know what kind of bodies that stuff is meant to fit. Once in a while, you find like a golden gem, because you know, most gems are gold. I'm real tall, I'm pretty narrow, big butt but flat chest, long legs and long torso and long neck head situation, broad shoulder. Like, I know everybody's body has like all these quirks, but that's kind of the beauty of it, is like everything's gonna fit weird on everybody probably. So I would plan to alter most clothes that I bought. Why the fuck was I gonna spend $25 on a shirt from some store at the mall when I could just buy something secondhand that was $3, take a stab at sewing it? If it didn't go well, because I was just learning how to sew and experimenting, and it was all teaching myself how to do it, I wasn't in the hole a ton of money, and I wasn't afraid of tackling that sewing project because it was fairly inexpensive. And then if I had scrap material from that for something else, if it didn't go well, cool. Even more encouragement to try a different project down the road. So all of this has turned into what I do now, which, hi, if you're new here, my name's Jo. I make a lot of videos, mostly about sewing things. As titled, I am a bit of a sewing nerd. And a lot of the stuff I do is on upcycled garments, what you may call a thrift flip, but that's just what I've been doing here for a long time. Not to pull a super hipster card on the hipstery thing, but I've been making thrifted DIY videos for fucking years over here, and I feel like I'm part of the old guard almost. Not to give myself more credit than I'm due, but like, that's my bread and butter. I really like taking things that are weird or just I have a vision for from the thrift store and making it into another thing. It's super fun and really low stakes sewing. Great way to test new things. I've definitely become a better seamstress because of doing projects like this with thrifted items, and I've developed my own sense of style. Which brings me to the third part of this video, which is what I learned doing this challenge. One of those things being, I didn't really realize I had a sense of style, but seeing almost 30 days cataloged of outfits I liked wearing and putting together kind of drove home some of the looks I tend to go for. A funny thing that's come up a couple times this year, and I'm sure has come up in previous years, is that people think I'm very edgy. At least from my perspective, I think I'm pretty bland. Maybe not boring, because I keep myself occupied. Like, I'm not a bored person. I may be boring to other people though, but I'm not living some raucous lifestyle. Is that even how you say that word? I suppose that's all relative. But anyway, from my standpoint, I think I'm pretty meh. That's how I view myself. Why the fuck am I even talking about this? Okay. Oh yeah, just that I guess maybe I have a little bit of an edgy style, like wearing tights under cutoff shorts, but that seems very safe to me. Something else I was excited about, even after 2 rounds of doing the Marie Kondo KonMari method in my closet, I still found 2 to 3 things that I just could not bring myself to keep after wearing or even put on for the outfit. Actually, no, there's 2 more things I added just this past week. So I will be donating 4 more items that I just do not want to wear, because the thought of posting a picture of me showcasing that as part of an outfit that spoke to me, I just couldn't do it. I hated it. So This sweater that I'm wearing as a little ferret sling, I did a video on how I turned it into this little tote bag. Also, I promise she's okay. She just naps like this sometimes. And she's just sleepy and old, so we're just chilling. Anyways, there were also some outfits I was really excited about pairing the pieces together, because something I had a suspicion of, but was really driven home by doing this, was that I don't have much in the way of basics that aren't fast fashion items. Most of my plain t-shirts, I have a ton of v-necks that are from Target or Walmart or Forever 21 or Charlotte Russe. Granted, I bought them a while ago, but they're still things that I depend on because it felt easier at the time. It made sense to buy 6 of the same shirt just in different colors, especially because it was so inexpensive. But this is exactly the problem. I actually grew weirdly resentful, maybe not weirdly, this is kind of the intent of this exercise, of the clothes that I did buy at, say, a Forever 21, because they were all things that had I just put the time in at a thrift store. And I do want to take a second to acknowledge sometimes people can't take the time and like physically get themselves in thrift stores. I know there's an able-bodied aspect to this, and I do want to check my own privilege in that capacity. I am able to go thrifting because I know that's not an option for everybody. This isn't me saying you're all monsters, anyone that buys a fucking $1.80 tank top at Charlotte Russe. I get it. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm not expecting everyone to be 100% going forward, but just I wanted myself and maybe some others to think about this a little more. Okay, other trouble areas that I have other than just plain t-shirts, which also are the easiest thing to make, and I have so much fabric and thrifted fabric that I have no excuse to not just make my own t-shirts going forward. Likewise, tank tops, like camisoles. Also, an issue for me are leggings, where I think I should be able to make my own. I know it's doable. I have a lot of pairs now, and I don't think it's helpful to get rid of the clothes that are fast fashion items that I already own, you know? But I do see myself having a little bit of a mental block buying secondhand leggings because it's so intimate, much like underwear. Underwear bottoms, I think, are going to be pretty easy to make. I have a bunch of pairs I can take apart that have like worn out or I just like the general fit of, and I can make those, and that is going to be a great use of scrap fabric. I think that's a really good way to go, although you want to be careful making sure you're using breathable fabric and everything so you're not causing yourself to get fucking yeast infections or something because you're not using good underwear material. So if you're going down that route, make sure you do your research. This is also me talking to myself, hey, look into it before you do it. And I did sometime last year buy myself a bra making pattern. I haven't looked at it at all. I do remember horrifying the very old woman who was also talking mad shit about tattoos on one of the fronts of the patterns. Really grossed out that I had a pattern for making underwear. It's like, it's a sewing store? I can't possibly be the first person that's been like, you know what? Fuck buying bras. Also, fuck buying bras. Is that not the worst shopping experience? Also, jeans. I did just get a drop of panic in my stomach thinking about making my own jeans, but at least I can thrift my own jeans. I know finding thrifted jeans that fit is like finding a needle in a haystack, but for me, worth the time and energy that I put in because I wear the fuck out of my jeans. Another thing I didn't touch on at all were like socks. All my socks are new, I'm sure not sustainably bought, although one company I'm pretty sure is. If I did my research, the company is called Blue Q. This is the other thing that I would like to mention to people is don't throw your shit in the trash if it's still wearable. There has to be an option for clothes that aren't good, because if I have a mangled garment, I'm still going to use those scraps for something else, even if it's just stuffing a dog toy, where I guarantee that's not the case for a lot of people, and that's frustrating because thinking about how Americans throw out 80 pounds of clothes a year, throw out in the garbage. It's just not something that was on my radar because I reuse every scrap that I can think to use. Some may say I have a hoarding problem, but I think of it as being eco-friendly. And again, I'm not perfect. There are so many things that I still was relying on fast fashion for. The other point I wanted to hit was what I'm going to change going forward. So I'm absolutely making my own t-shirts underwear, leggings, tank tops, the basics. I'm gonna make my own basics. There's a lot of research that has to get done going forward, and I very much will be looking into sustainable companies buying things. And I know I'm not going to be buying much in that regard because it's more expensive, but that means it's not made in sweatshop. People are getting paid fairly for their wages. It's not as much of a burden to the environment. Of course, here I am not giving you specifics, but these are the types of things I would like to look up. And this is where I want the conversation to go from here is, what are your thoughts on all of this? And what are your recommendations for places to go for these things? Shit, y'all. Real talk, like real talk. Something I did not expect to have as a hurdle with this. Having to take a posed photo of myself every day was a much bigger issue than I expected. I didn't think about that aspect at all. I know I'm not the most self-confident person in the world, but this took a weirdly big mental toll, just starting to feel like I needed to wear makeup every day to take the picture because I'd take a photo without it and thought I looked worse. I know I post videos of myself twice a week on the internet, so I'm familiar with what I look like, and I thought I was at a place of content indifference. But something about these pictures, I don't know if it's because I was trying to heighten the outfit and like pull it all together because it looked more finished having makeup on. That was an aspect I didn't anticipate dealing with. I almost wish I had just put everything on a dress form, but that would have felt less personal and intimate and less about the story behind the clothing, if that made sense. Because I like telling people where I got the thing. Sorry, there was a car pulling very close to the house and I thought they were coming in the driveway. Where the clothes came from, where I was when I bought them. I think that just made it more interesting. There was more heart behind it, where it would have been more about the actual fashion of the thing, which is not really my wheelhouse had I just been putting it on a dress form or something. So I'm glad I did it the way I did it. Let's talk about it. I'll post another DIY video this coming weekend and we'll make some stuff. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna go back to hanging out with this ferret and these cats. And I'll talk to you all really soon. I hope this was interesting. I know it was a little different doing like a discussion video, but here we are. I hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for hanging out. Ah. She just tried to shit in my purse.